Not all the time, but anyway, let's start. Try. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tadashri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tadashri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 4th day of March 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, text 23 in the middle of page 250. Shaknoti haiva yah sodhum prak sharira vimokshanat kama krododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha shaknoti haiva yakshodhum. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Start again. Shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat kama krododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat kama krododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat kama krododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. Bhushan. Shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat prama krododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. Go ahead, Nelson. No, shaknoti. Shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha shaknoti haiva yakshodhum praksharir vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. You ready, Arjun? 250. He's got it. 23. Shaknoti haiva yakshodham praksharir vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. Did you go already? You went, right?
I can go twice.
It's all right. Go ahead. Once is enough. Shaknoti haiva yakshodham praksharir vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. You want to try there? You don't have to. That's okay. Anyone online?
Shaknoti haiva yashodham
Shaknoti haviyaksodhum
praksharira vimokshanat
praksharira vimokshanat
kama krodhat bhavam vegam
kama krodhod bhavam vegam
sajukta sha sukhi nara.
sayukta sasukhi naraham. Word by words. Shaknoti is able, iha eva, in the present body, yaha, one who, sodhum, to tolerate, prak, before, sharira, the body, vimokshanat, giving up, kama, desire, krodha, and anger, udbhavam, generated from, vegam, urges, saha, he, yuktaha, in trance, saha, he, sukhi, happy, naraha, human being. Translation. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. Purport. If one wants to make steady progress on the path of self-realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are the forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genitals, and forces of the tongue. One who is able to control the forces of all these different senses and the mind is called Goswami or Swami. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the forces of the senses. Material desires, when unsatiated, generate anger, and thus the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. Therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. One who can do this is understood to be self-realized and is thus happy in the state of self-realization. It is the duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this is very interesting. The previous two verses, two of my favorites, Krishna is speaking there about where real happiness lies. First, it's kind of the order is kind of reversed a little bit intuitively, but in text 22, he says, Yehi sangsparjita boga dukkha yonaya evate adyantabanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures that are due to the contact of the senses with their objects. This is commonly called sense gratification. Doesn't take part. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not take part in them. Then how do they get pleasure? That's practically the way we know to get pleasure, right? Contact the senses and the mind with the object. So he says, no, that's text 21. Bhayasparsheshu asaktatma vindatyatmadiyat sukham. Sab Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukhamakshayam Ashnute. The key is that Brahma Yoga Yukta Atma, linking oneself with Brahman. Now Brahman has three phases: the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, the white light, the universal spirit, super soul in the heart, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Vadanti tas tattvavidas tattvam advaitam. Vadanti tas tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavanditi shabjite. This comes up second chapter, first canto of the Bhagavatam. And he says exactly what I explained there. So here's the first line of this text in 21 says, Bhayasparsheshu. This is the external contact of the senses with the sense objects, which give rise to pleasure and unfortunately also pain. Asaktatma, not attracted, not attached. This is describing the realized soul who's enjoying the spiritual pleasure within at every moment. Vindati enjoys, Atmani Yatsukam, he enjoys the pleasure within. In other words, the super soul is there, Krishna is in the heart, and by the process of devotional service, we can connect to him and we can enjoy transcendental pleasure by serving him. The interest, not of our senses, but the interest of Krishna's senses. What's the name of Krishna, which means the master of the senses? Rishikesh. Rishikesh. Its name comes up in the previous chapter several times, Arjun. Rishika Isha. The understanding that Krishna is the master of the senses. Our senses. That our senses really belong to Krishna. What does it mean? Isha Vashamidam Sarvam Yatkinchit Jagajagan. This is the first mantra of the Ishopanishad. That the Lord is the controller and owner of everything, which means that everything should be used in his service. And that the success of the spirit soul is to learn how to take pleasure in serving the master of the senses. This is actually where real pleasure lies. This is what's being explained here. Not in these our independent contact of the senses with the sense objects, which just end in misery. If nothing else, they'll bring you back again to birth, old age, disease, and death. Those unfulfilled desires, because they're always unfulfilled. When you enjoy some sense gratification, okay, you may be satiated for a little while, but then you want to do it again and again and again, and you're carrying all these unfulfilled desires. As soon as the object of the senses comes in your vision, or you hear about it, or whatever, then the desire awakens again. But as time goes on, for one reason or another, you can't enjoy them anymore. If nothing else, this time wears down the senses, and you can't do it. And so you have these unfulfilled desires, and they bring you back again to another birth. Comment, question?
A question. I'm in a chatty mood tonight, so apologies in advance if there's a couple. Is the pursuit of status or reputation, is that a form of sense pleasure, or
Absolutely.
Is it dependent on them?
No, totally. It's just subtle sense gratification. It can often completely take over the idea, oh, I can get so much status. Pratishtasha, it's called, the aspiration for pratishta. Pratishta is, becoming famous and honored and all that. It's a very, most of us, the vast majority of people don't have much of that at all. But for those who have some access to it, the people who are famous in the world, it's like an intoxicant. It's intoxicant.
It's also an addiction.
An addiction, yeah.
Because sometimes when they lose that fame,
Yeah.
they also go into depression.
Sometimes? Not sometimes. Always.
Depends how enlightened.
Yeah. But this is he's describing in 21 where real pleasure lies. And it's interesting that in the next verse, the one where he says that one has to, sense gratification just produces dukkha. Dukkha yoneya means the source of misery. And not only that, but it's temporary. So those who are wise, the Buddha, do not take their pleasure there. This is actually a basic principle of spiritual life in general, is that you understand from hearing and from associating with those who are on a higher platform that there's a higher source of satisfaction and happiness and pleasure than the flickering sense gratification. And so, if you're intelligent, you say, let me strive for that state. Let me learn how I can emulate such a person in such an activity. And that's what preaching is all about. And so, the wonderful thing about the Krishna consciousness movement, it says, because what is it? Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, that phrase, to link the self with Brahman, spirit, in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's where the happiness lies. Well, how to do that? The simplest thing, the simplest process, by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. That sound, that mantra is especially suited for this age. It's very easy to memorize. It takes you practically 10 seconds to memorize. You got it down. No restrictions. Lord Chaitanya said, Nam Namakari Bahudani Sarva Shakti Tatta Vidani Yamatak Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Bakri Pa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midashamihajani Anuraga. He's taking the role here of an aspirant, who's trying to get an attraction for the holy name. We should identify with it. So you have many names. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshavatu, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving them out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place, and also of candidate. I didn't have room in the line for that one. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace, But I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. So this is Lord Chaitanya taking the role of a beginner, you know, and understanding the glories of the holy name and how accessible he is and just suited for us. But alas, we're so foolish that we just dabble, we don't really get a taste for the holy name. So, what's the solution? Trinadapi sunichena, tadorapi sahishnana, amanina manadena kirtani eksadahari. The next verse, which is the key verse in the whole practice for devotional service. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. To think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant the name incessantly until the final hour. That's my little poetic rendition, forgive me. But it's a key verse. In other words, it's just the opposite. If you want to get sense gratification in this world, you have to be a go-getter. You know, first you have to get the money. You know, anything, just the opposite of China Bisunichena, right? And tolerance for all kinds of insults, and it's just the opposite. And amanina manadena, here comes the subtle sense gratification. Not desiring any honor for oneself, giving honor to everyone else, you know. And then what's the advantage? You can chant the name all the time, because you're always calling out to the Lord. You feel that, you know, that I'm so insignificant, and you know, I really don't have any assets, but all I have is my ardent desire that for your mercy, my Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And that mood of supplication gets the attention of the Lord, and you before long you're relishing the holy name. There's a wonderful verse Queen Kunti chants in the 8th chapter, 1st canto. And it's all about chanting, and it's directly related to this. She says, Janmaishwarya Shuta Shribir, Edamana Malakpuman, Naiva Haktibidhatam Vai, Twama Kinchana Gochara. Twama Kinchana Gochara means you are especially available to those who are devoid of anything in this world. A kinchana means they don't claim anything as theirs, or they're really bereft of everything. So what's the advantage? You have to call out to Krishna at every moment for help. That's so she says on the other, so the verse begins, Janmaishwarya Shuta Shibir. There's 4 basic opulences that people want in this world. The first one, which we don't even know about in the West anymore, is a good birth in a nice family, you know, with a nice gotra, you know. That's very important. Aishwarya, wealth, obviously. Shuta, very nice education. And Shibir, physical beauty. Those 4. People strive for them. If they don't have them, they'll spend thousands on, you know, face jobs and everything, try to be beautiful. And of course, education, if you can afford it somehow, you know, go into debt for the rest of your life to try to get an education. So these are the things, and she says, getting your mercy and realization is easy, is simple. Because by chanting your holy name, that's the whole thing. By addressing you with your holy name with deep feeling. But those who are progressively intoxicated with these opulences or desiring to get them cannot call upon you with deep feeling. You see, it's a contradiction. You're striving for personal beauty, you're striving for money here, and and then you're going to chant Hare Krishna. You know, how are you going to feel as humble as a blade of grass? It doesn't work. It's contradictory of terms. You see. So establishing that mood, that's the whole point of renunciation, of living simply, simple living, high thinking. The idea that to uncomplicate your life as simply as possible. You got to keep body and soul together, obviously. But I was thinking, the whole thing, everything rests on your fate, your direction in life, your destiny. What do you place your attention on? This is what we have, isn't it? Isn't that what the whole internet is all about? Getting your attention. They sell your information. Oh, this person, he likes this, and this and that, and then now I want to know what ads I'll send into it. The whole thing is like that. So what the attention, and it's always trying to get you to go down a certain alleyway, to enjoy in a certain way, and of course pay the money that you have to do to go down. It's demonic. But if you don't want these things, if you cut off them, I don't care. I don't care about name and fame. I'm not out to make a lot of money and all of that. I want to try to know God. I want to try to contact the Lord. I want to try to enjoy much more than the others. It's a paradox. In Krishna consciousness, the only way to really, get spiritual pleasure is forget all about your spiritual pleasure. Just think of how you can please the devotees, the spiritual master, the Lord himself. What do they want? And work toward that, and you find yourself floating in bliss. But if you think, we had a bhakta here many years ago. I don't even think Balaram would remember. And he was, he was a sincere guy. He immediately took to the morning program. He was doing everything. But whenever you talk to him, he would always get into this thing. Yeah, I experienced this and I experienced that, but I wasn't experiencing this so much. He was all, what's it doing for me? It's almost like hatha yoga. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good now. I do a little more of those exercises. I'm feeling all right. But so he never could really adjust to that, forgetting about that and just being serious about fulfilling his duty. But that's the paradox. It's a paradox because we're so used to the other thing, which is unnatural for the soul, to be identifying with the body, which is, after all, a very temporary vessel. It's very fragile. It can be, it's not really, it shouldn't be seen as a source of pleasure, but as a source as a tool by which you can connect to Krishna. The ear is so important. The eyes, you can read about Krishna. The hands, you can do service. All the senses can be engaged. So that's what's being talked about here. That nateshu ramate buddha. Those who are wise, they don't take their pleasure, ramate, in these sense gratification, because it's temporary and it results in misery, as it's described here. Then how do they enjoy it? In the purport to 22. Ramante yogano nante satyanande chidatmani iti rama padenasu param brahma vadiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. Rama means the transcendental pleasure. Rama is the name for Krishna. That means he is always enjoying varieties of transcendental pleasure. So that's what we should aspire for. And in order to do that, in 23, it's very sobering. He said, before death, this word vegam, and Prabhupada picks up on the word vegam, and those who know the Nectar of Instruction book, the very first verse is all about Vegas, right? Remember when there was a car called the Vega? I don't know if you remember that. That was always very paradoxical. Anyway, so here he says, before giving up this present body, in other words, the clock is ticking. We have a certain amount of time left in the body by which we can try to achieve advancement in devotional service. And the basic principle is to tolerate the urges of the material senses, check the force of desire and anger. Well, you can't just stop it. It's not a question of willpower. This is the mystic yogis, All right, I know that I have to control the mind and senses. No way I can do it in a big city like this. So let me go off to the, secluded areas, maybe in the Himalayas or somewhere, anywhere where I can be alone, And I can work on myself. I can do the breathing and try to control the mind in that way, And so that way is not meant for this age. Arjuna rejected it. Chanchalami mana Krishna. It's like trying to control the wind, a hurricane. How can you control a hurricane? The mind is so powerful. Chanchalami mana Krishna pramati balavadridham. Very obstinate, very powerful. Just by your own will, you can't do it. You need help. You need help from Krishna. And so, how to control it? That is the process, the basic process of chanting. You chant the holy name and try to concentrate. All right, the mind is going here and there, but with practice, if you're also in a community and you're also serving in such a way that the objects of the senses are verboten, it's not in the program. You say, okay, I'll say that. And then you pray to Krishna, please, like Queen Kunti prays. She's teaching us how to pray, saying, Madhu's Lord, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of Thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to Thee. So that this is a prayer. And Rupa Goswami has a similar prayer. It's a song. Prabhupada gives the translation to this song in a purport, I think is in the first canto. It's one of Rupa Goswami's songs. In his book, the Stavamala. Stavamala means a garland of prayers, you know. It's basically an anthology of his own writings. And there's a section there of songs. The most famous one is the one that is sung in ISKCON, mostly on Radhashtami. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dahite. It's all about Radharani, very beautiful. So this one is not as famous, but they did translate it. And it has a wonderful refrain. They all have refrains, you know. Kṛṣṇa bhavandam vande manmanasamadkarma payanida patapam kachamakadande. Has a nice beat to it. So what does it mean? Oh Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. That's a poetic way of saying, please, oh Lord, let me concentrate on you and take pleasure in relishing your beauty and qualities and pastimes and service like that. That's really what the Hare Krishna mantra is. It's a prayer. What did Prabhupada say? What does it mean? It means, oh Radha, oh Krishna, please engage me in your service. That's the simple meaning, like that. So then he says, Yadapi samadasha vidatapi pashyati nadamanakaga medicham idamicham in the shammitabachata tadapikipabadavicham. Though even Brahma, deep in trance, cannot achieve his goal, a glimpse of your effulgent toenails soothing to the soul. Because, O Lord, I've heard of your compassion's endless waves, that very vision is the only boon my poor heart craves. So this is the first verse. He's saying, even though it seems impossible for me to achieve meditation on your lotus feet, which I know is the source of all security and all pleasure, transcendental pleasure, and even Brahma has trouble doing it, still, I have faith in the power of your compassion and that you'll help me do it. You know? So then, and then the next verse says, Bhakti madasya yadya bimada manatray mamati lamatri padameshwarata tadabidabhata katu gatagatana madatri. Despite great effort, I have not attained, O Madhava, despite great effort, I have not attained a drop of pure devotion. This has brought me endless pain. Yet though it seems impossible to ever fill this need, your monumental power gives me hope I shall succeed. So he's putting all his faith in Krishna. He said, even though I'm unqualified, you are so powerful and so kind and so compassionate. Please empower me so that I can also experience this pure love that I've heard about. You know? And then finally he says, this. Then the last verse of the song says, I am a Lord the Adasanat and the Kaladabha the Sabadam, Nivasati Nitya Mahamadin in the Nibindan Maradi Masaram. Today, O Lord, please place my mind upon your feet, so I can taste the extraordinary nectar, wondrous and sweet. I pray that for eternity my mind may there reside to relish luscious honey that defeats ambrosia's pride. It's a little, you know, poetic version. So this is a, you know, he's teaching us a lot about the attitude that we should have in trying to achieve advancement. It really is a constant prayer. And you know, that's what constant chanting means, constant praying. Prabhupada was once in the altar, I think it was in Vrindavan, or maybe LA, and he seemed to be praying ardently to the Lord, you know. And one devotee afterward, and he asked him, Prabhupada, what were you praying for? He says, I was praying that I don't fall down. Prabhupada, you're a pure devotee, you can't fall down. You know, that doesn't make any sense. I know, because I'm always praying. The chanting is praying, is calling out to the Lord, please protect me, please pick me up. You know. So that, the whole thing is a change of heart. And, you know, knowing this science here, that there are these urges in our conditioned state, these vegas that come from anger, from desire, the different senses are pushing us. So, before we leave this body, in other words, we need to be able to get control of them. And the fact is, we can't, on our own, get control of them. But Krishna can control them. And the attraction of Krishna is actually stronger for the soul, once we get a little purified, than these objects. This is what Vairagya is all about. But Vairagya is not the same thing as Tyaga. It's important to understand the difference. There's Vairagya and there's tyaga. Much more important than tyaga for us is vairagya. We also have tyaga. Tyaga literally means to give up. You know, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Those are prerequisites. Somehow you have to, you know, at least stop for a little bit and chant Hare Krishna and try to get the strength, you know. It may be difficult at first, but that's a prerequisite. But the real thing is vairagya. Vairagya means you become a little advanced in Krishna consciousness, you're chanting nicely, you're following, you're associating, and the desire for those things is waning. That's the vairagya. That's the platform of security. That's why Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you know, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is so wonderful because there's so many dramatic cases where Lord Chaitanya converts, you know, he converts the Mayavadis, he even converts the Buddhists, you know, and thousands of ordinary people also become ecstatic in love of Godhead just by his efforts, just by chanting Hare Krishna. So he converts Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Give him, yeah, set him up.
Well, you could sit here or move in.
Well, he can sit on the bench. See what you want. Can you want to stay in class? You have time? Okay, good. Take a book. You can sit on the bench if you want, or a chair. Yeah. 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 Well, yeah. Yeah. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a big-time impersonalist, actually, but he was open. You know, he was in charge of the Jagannath temple, so he had all that. So when Lord Chaitanya came to the temple, you know, he immediately ran toward the deity and fell down in ecstasy, and he was in samadhi. So he didn't even look. He looked like he wasn't breathing at first, but the guards, they had so many examples of this. You know, that people faking it. So they were ready to strike him, you know, and kick him out of the temple. But Sarvabhauma said, wait a minute. It looks like he's really in samadhi, you know. And he was worried because he couldn't see any breathing, but he put a little cotton by the nose. Oh, okay. And he was very beautiful. You know, Lord Chaitanya, he was 24 years old. He was, you know, very striking. So Sarvabhauma he had him brought to his own house, you know, and he stood there. And finally, you know, the others came. Nityananda had come from Navadvip with them, and several others. And so Nityananda, he broke Lord Chaitanya's danda. He had sannyasi danda, but he said, what does he need a danda for? You know, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he broke it and threw it into the river and went. So when Lord Chaitanya found out he was feigning anger, he said, okay, look, you go ahead to the temple, or I'll go ahead, but I'm not going to go with you anymore, you know. He said, okay, you go. So he started running toward the temple. You can see it from a distance. It has this, you know, chakra on top. So he went into the temple, saw Lord Jagannath, said, oh, here's my Lord, fell down in ecstasy. So then he's brought to Sarvabhauma's house, you know. And Sarvabhauma, you know, he sees this, you know, he comes to, so to speak, and he's speaking to him. And he's worried about him because he's so attractive. You know, how's he going to maintain sannyas? He's 24 years old, you know. So he says, well, okay, let me teach you Vedanta, you know. So the Lord says, okay, you know. So for 7 days he listens. He doesn't say a word. There's a wonderful painting where he's kind of staring out, and Sarvabhauma is speaking to him. So finally, after 7 days, Sarvabhauma says, well, are you hearing? He says, I'm hearing nicely. So how come you're not asking any questions? Don't you understand the philosophy? I understand perfectly well, but your explanations are obscuring it like the clouds, you know. Really? You know? He was the most learned and erudite Mayavadi in So, well, why don't you explain to me what you think the Vedanta is? And then he started explaining it, and by the time he was finished, Sarvabhauma was converted. He understood that Vedanta means bhakti, bhakti Vedanta. The end of knowledge is bhakti, not impersonal, you know, Mayavad. So then later on he composed these 2 verses. They weren't part of there was 100 verses that he composed off the you know, he was a wonderful scholar that he just composed right like the wind. Those are known as the Shloka Shataka. I'll give you an example of one of those. But then he composed 2 others that became very famous. And he sent them to Lord Chaitanya, who was staying in the Gambhira. I saw that when I was in Jagannath Puri many, many years ago. A little, you know, room that's constructed, you know, barely 1/8 of this, a little corner of this room, you know. And that was his home. So he sent it to Lord Chaitanya, but before his, Govinda, his servant, gave it to him, he copied them on the wall outside because they glorified him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he didn't like that. And he thought he might rip them up, and he did. As soon as he saw the 2 verses, he ripped the leaves apart to little pieces. But they were on the wall, so they became famous. So the first one, the most famous, is about Vairagya. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartameka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dari Kripambudiyas Tamaham Papadye. You know this one? You've heard it. So he starts out with Vairagya Vidya. These 2 things. Lord Krishna has come to teach in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Detachment and knowledge, they go together. Knowledge naturally produces detachment, or at least your interest in cultivating detachment. Why? Because I always give this example, and I'll keep giving it. So imagine we had this wonderful devotee here. He passed away 2 years ago, I guess. Madhusudan. He joined in 1966. He's the husband of Kanchan Bala, father of Chintamani. They come all over. I think so. Yeah, yeah. He was a little, yeah. He joined, you know, in 1966. You know, he was like one of those few. And anyway, he got COVID. You know, it happened. So, but he was very expert at making sweet rice. And every time we had Prabhupada's appearance day, we have, you know, a lot of the Prabhupada disciples in the area, they come and they cook in the kitchen. You'll always see Yamunapati in there and some others. So Madhusudan was there working on his sweet rice. And it was a big hit every time, you know, the devotees would have it. Usually you have to prepare it the night before, so it could be cooled, you know, properly like that. So anyway, the idea is that it's Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja day, the feast is almost over, it's time for the dessert. That's kind of a dessert, the sweet rice. The strawberry sweet rice was his specialty. You know, and the devotees said, oh, okay, bring it on. And devotees take out the, you know, the little barrels there, containers, and they're each of the 4 or 5 rules, and they're ready to go down. And, you know, devotees, okay, I got my empty cup, let's do it, you know. And just before they start going down, Madhusudan runs in from the kitchen. Says, oh, Prabhu, Mataji, I'm so sorry, you know. I put salt in the sweet rice. It's not sweet. And immediately that, I'm not saying this actually happened, this is kind of an example. But if it did happen, this would be the ideal. The gyan, the knowledge that the salt is in there, knocks out the desire, you see? No longer do you desire that white substance which really isn't sweet rice anymore. So that's the Vairagya Vidya, see that? So knowledge of the fact that we're not the body, right? That you're the soul, and that soul is part and parcel of Krishna, and that we have the opportunity to reawaken our original nature as servants of Krishna, and that in that way we can escape birth and death, old age and disease, and dive into an ocean of nectar for eternity. This is not just a pipe dream. It's spoken by the great acharyas, headed by Srila Prabhupada, and going all the way back to Krishna himself. So we have faith in it, and then we have examples of Prabhupada himself, you know, and other great acharyas who exemplified this bliss even in this material world. Then we become inspired to give up these Vegas, you know, and with the strength that you got from chanting the holy name and practicing other things, you can actually do it. And before long, it's like, are you kidding? Because I remember, I mean, I don't know about you, many of you were probably, you know, vegetarians from birth. I wasn't. And I remember distinctly, you know, growing up in my household, and my mother, she wasn't that great a cook, but you know, many things. And so I said, okay, you know, forget about all this other stuff. What meat did you make? That's really the dinner that we're having, right? I mean, that's the way I felt. I was just karmi, you know. We didn't even have any religion. So luckily, I was saved from that. But it's not like, oh, you know, I'm dreaming the spaghetti and meatballs or anything. No way. That's just, oh my God, you can't even imagine it anymore, you know. You go into the you know, grocery store or the you know, the big stores, and you don't even want to look at the part, where all these cuts of meat are there. It's just tragic. So from the vairagya and from the experience of Krishna consciousness, or from the jnana and from the experience, then it's complete vairagya, there's distaste. It begins with tyaga. There may be some desires for that, and probably he knew that was going to happen. Therefore, he taught how to make pakoras and samosas, and so the wonderful tasty prasadam that also ended it. You lose the taste. So you see how important that vairagya is, because we want raga nuga, right? Raga means desire, but we don't want the raga for material things. And that's why I like this sloka. I'm sorry, I'm quoting too many slokas. Oh boy. But this one was taught to me by Mahavishnu Maharaj, the elder. I don't think anyone here remembers him. But he took sannyas, he started Dwarka ISKCON, and it's still doing very nicely, but he spent a lot of time here before he took sannyas. Dwarka, actual Dwarka in India. And so he likes shlokas and I like shlokas, so he taught me this one. This from the Padma Puran. Deheshti mangsudurire bimatam chajasra jaya sutarich sadama matam vimuncha pashanisham jagaditam chanabhangatishtam vairagya raga dasako bhava bhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids at home. At every moment, see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. And whenever I do my little poem here, I say, I really didn't do justice to the last line. Vairagya raga. Become attached to detachment. You see? Aspire for it. But the only way to do it is to become a rasika. Vairagya rasiko bhava bhakti nishtam. And rasika simply means someone who can taste the bhakti rasa at every moment. That's where the real pleasure is. Now that's an advanced state, to be able to taste varieties of bhakti rasa, in conjugal rasa or sakya rasa, whatever it is. But even just beginners in this process, you can taste, the taste of kirtan and devotional service in such a way that you can become strong in your detachment. And you can actually live a life not indulging in all these things, and aspiring for perfection in devotional service. Now it's not easy, but I always take shelter and encouragement from some of the early verses in the Bhagavad Gita. I forget the number of the verse. The second chapter, it says Neha Prakramanashosti Pratyavayam Navidyate Svopamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. In this process of devotional service, there's no loss and there's no diminution. Just think what that means. It's so much contrary to what there is in the material world. If you work really hard and somehow you make success, you have some money, you have some prestige and everything, how long does it last? Your head, it's got a name on it, right? There's a bank account, it's got a name on it. But that name is not your name, it's the name of your body. When you leave the body, the money stays here in the account. Oh, that person died, okay, it goes to the state or whatever, Doesn't go with you. Can't take a penny. Your prestige, what good is it going to do in your next life as a cat or dog? You see the problem? That everything material is temporary, and therefore the eternal soul should not become attached to the temporary, because that's just going to lead to anxiety and defeat. It's defeat if you don't at least begin your process of devotional service. But even a little, suopam, svopam apyasya dharmasya, in this dharma of bhakti, advancement, protects you from the greatest danger, the most fearful danger. Mahato bayat. Bayat can mean fear, and it can also mean danger. It's like in Sanskrit, the thing that that leads to one thing, they have the same word. Gati, it's the goal, and also the means to go to the goal, isn't it? So what's the most fearful danger? Who can say?
Lose the human form.
Yes. It's not just dying. We're all going to die and take birth, again, either in a spiritual body or a material body. But to lose the human form, be cast down into the lower species and have to wait, come up. Nobody gets eternal damnation, but it's a great postponement, you know. And then when you get back to the human form, if you're not fortunate enough to have the right association, so we've had the right association. We've had the seed planted. Now we have to water it properly, take care of the garden, you know, weed out all of the offenses. The wonderful garden Lord Chaitanya describes to Rupa Goswami. And understanding these basic verses of Bhagavad Gita are very important also. I'm sorry I've taken all the time practically. Go ahead, Arjun.
When you visited Jagannath temple,
Yeah.
did you experience that flag which flows opposite to the wind direction of wind?
No, I can't say I did.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to go in the temple, you know, because I don't have the right color.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. But I was learning recently, so they change the flag every day.
Uh-huh.
There is a person who goes all the way up.
It's at the top?
Yeah, the top.
Okay.
And then that flag flows opposite to the direction of the wind.
How is that possible?
So that's one mysticism. Another is they have pots, like they make prasad.
Oh, lots of prasad.
So they have series of pots, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Uh-huh.
So they burn the first pot, which is at the bottom, but the food gets made in the top one first.
You say they burn it or just heat it?
They heat it. They
Okay.
heated the
Yeah.
first one,
Yeah.
but the food which is
All
in
the way
the
at the
top
top
one,
gets-
that gets cooked first.
No, I don't believe this.
There are
Okay.
some mysticism, you know, in Jagannath temple. So I was learning about them like yesterday, day before.
Far out.
So there are
Boy.
so many things which, you know, people
That's great
people
to
been
know.
experiencing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get back there this lifetime, but it was I was fortunate to visit. Go ahead, bro.
Two more little questions. One, what's the difference between yuktaha and samadhi?
Yuktaha. This is from the 23rd verse, the first one we read.
It's translated as trance.
This is in which number, 23 or 24?
23.
23. I'll translate it as in trance. Okay. Well, yuktaha, you know, it's the same root as the word yoga. It means that person is linked up. It's yukta. He's linked up to what is described in text 21. Sabrahma yoga yuktatma. You see, second line in text 21. The same idea is that your everything, your mind, your senses, your soul, everything is linked up to Krishna because you're completely absorbed in thinking, serving, glorifying, like that. So that's yukta. Originally 23, was it, or the verse we read?
21.
Okay, 21. But today we read 20. We began with 23. Yeah, the same word is being used. So it's generally meaning that you are plugged in. In other words, your senses are engaged in serving the Lord. Your mind is thinking the Lord. You're in yoga, and here it's not just meant for like some minutes a day. It's meant that you've reached that state where you're always linked up. And it begins, the prerequisite is that you have to learn how to control or tolerate the urges that are coming from the senses and the mind, you know. That's what this verse is all about. And at least before you leave the body, you have to have a period when you're linked up and you're not just responding to the urges.
So samadhi, which is often also translated as trance, does it carry an additional meaning or an additional sense?
Yes, yeah. I think, because here, he's talking here about tolerating the urges. If someone in samadhi is beyond that point.
Samadhi is also sometimes when, let's say, Prabhupada left his body.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
That also taken as he has taken samadhi. Right?
Yeah.
As
It's
when-
understood the great souls, when they leave the body, in his samadhi is also a shorthand for the place where they're interred. Because it's understood that the great souls, they're completely fixed at that point of leaving the body, and they're totally connected with Krishna, and they've gone on to, their reward, in the spiritual world. Re-entered the eternal lila, nitya lila pravishta om. We say this is sometimes during the Premadwani prayers. All right, we better adjourn because we're going to have a kirtan in 5 minutes. Thank you for coming. We'll have another class tomorrow, beginning with text 24. Yeah, we didn't make too much advancement, I'm sorry.